All right, 11:30. I'm going to lead off with last week. Corey Ives asked me a very good question. I said, "What would you like a strategic plan to look like?" So I put mine together. And this is not a work plan. It is essentially the one person's approach, and how I used to do it is figure out who are the key players and the steps that are taken from my perspective after this are you get in contact with them. So on the industry leaders, founding director, UW Clean Energy Institute, Dan Schwartz, I actually have met with him a couple of times. And it's trying to leverage other people's talents and resources in as close to a cost-free way as possible for the county. So just put it together, as Corey asked, what I thought was a fair question, and with it as you wish. The meeting is now over to Brian Smiley.
Has some questions on this for Robert?
So to me, a great list of resources and contacts and information. I just want to make sure I'm not missing something. Kind of the only thing I see in the plan is developing relationships with key players. That's really what you see as the focus, or is this like a stage one? When I think plan, I think like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. But I just want to make sure I was.
You're not missing anything.
Okay,
this reflects my approach, which is develop the relationships, the plan, and I don't make plans. It's like develop the relationships is the plan. And it's like, well, we're trying to build an economy here. What would you do, Dan Schwartz? What would you do, Dennis Washington? Let them create the plan organically for you.
Okay.
And they'll take it where they're going to take it. That's just my approach.
Oh, no, I was just wanting to make sure I understood what the document.
This is a strategic plan for one element of the overall plan.
It is almost that's a reasonable interpretation. My take is this is the key element. This is kind of the grand strategy. If you identify the market sectors, and there can be a bunch that are missing, and if you've identified the key external factors and sort of what the governmental framework is, that everything will flow from that. So is it one element? Well, I guess it is one element, but from my perspective it is the key element from which everything else flows. I'll introduce it. Corey asked me to, so I do.
Yeah, because I gave some thought to what Corey was saying, and he was so eloquent at the table. I'll carve out, because for all of time, this and the strategic plan did come first, and in all of government, and especially now, they just call it studies instead. Well, you got a $75,000 grant for a study and a feasibility study, right? And then so you hear people talking, well, another study on the shelf collecting dust. I think for all of time, this was horse before the cart. This was the way it's supposed to be. I would carve out now that you have got to build a plane while you fly it, simply because of the dollars that are available. That any time spent administering is maybe not time spent, and that's the boots on the ground piece to me. So I would say they have to be concurrent right now. And frankly, if I was prioritizing one, it would be getting the dollars over building the plan right now. I think you do have to do both, but I don't think it does any good to have to spend a year and a half. And I know that's not what you're suggesting, Robert. We're just all kind of tired. Polling Condrey County, getting familiar. What do we want? What is everyone going to get behind? The plan that the 80 study gave us from the PUD, incorporating all the elements, and then getting started while these grant windows are passing us by, right? Okay, I built it, and you're going to turn over the keys to someone. You're going to have to. It's going to have to fly now because of the dollars that are available. So that is my perspective on it. That's largely how I interpreted Corey's comments. It is both. the plan itself ends up being very organic for these reasons specifically. And so I always kind of refute this idea that we can pick what we want to do in Pend Oreille County in so many terms, right? If you built a building, no one would have thought it was going to be newsprint. Okay, it's newsprint. Well, no one would have thought after newsprint it's going to be a digital currency, right? None of that was planned per se. So when you have the relationships, that's how you get the people in there to begin with, and that's how you cast that network. But best laid plans, right? For my part, I always kind of resisted that idea. Who are we going to target? Huge distinction. There's fights I've had with RG&U over the years. Who we decide to go after, we've got that nailed down. It is value added, resource extraction, turn little dollars into big dollars on this single plank of wood, things of that nature. We do exceptionally well in Pend Oreille County. That's who we would target. I'm not going and looking for someone to smelt silicon in this county, but am I turning them away? Right. And so that's just my thoughts on it. I think this is absolutely critical, obviously, to moving forward. But the obvious question is, what do you do with the relationships? And that isn't reflected here.
Let's talk about the contract. I could go on about industry and economic development stuff for a long time, and we won't get into that. I'll have time for that tomorrow.
Do we have a meeting tomorrow?
There is, isn't there? Tomorrow morning? Wednesday? Medellin?
Yes,
Oh,
EDAC.
I thought you
Sorry,
were here, I'm
thought
like,
that's
no,
what I was getting-
no.
Yeah,
I can't
sorry.
be in two
I thought I was the only one gonna be there.
No,
I
well,
was like, oh my God, what did we?
I know, thank you.
I should have just let it hang.
Yeah,
Yeah, I should have got
That
you
would
guys.
not be nice.
We had an update from Dolly yesterday. She went over kind of the things that she was going to try to change in the contract and the things that she felt like needed to be retained. And we haven't received that back from
Okay.
her yet. Obviously there were some things that she readily agreed with and some things that she felt like were standard requirements for all of our contracts in dealing with contractors. So we don't have that in front of us. At least I haven't seen it. And so I can't really give you guys details beyond that. I would be basing it on my memory, and she really was just giving us a rough idea of what she's going to do. Okay, so that's where we're at. And I'm sorry you guys had to hear that, right?
She did say, and I think you know, Kelly, already, that she had worked closely with Jill around kind of the steps and the accounting pieces of it. It sounds like you guys have largely reached how that's going to work, how that's going to flow. And I know that was a big concern. She did indicate that as well, that she had spoken with Jill and kind of got the co-witness on that. So that should alleviate some concerns there. But yeah, that was her message. Some of it she could give, some of it is, we are going to follow our risk pool's recommendations and our legal counsel's recommendations ultimately.
Yeah.
And that's to protect the taxpayer. So
Yeah, the other thing she wanted to say was that as far as the insurance requirements and the risk pool requirements, that's really a standard for everybody for the county. And I know you guys view
I
that.
think it's weird
I know.
on the, like,
Yes.
she's our employee and it's our car
yeah.
Yes.
and maybe there's an additional.
So I'll give you one of the examples she threw out, and Brandon was here and he threw it in. And that's because I was like, why is it the same for everyone? Why is the insurance amount the same regardless of who we're working with? Shouldn't people have different levels of exposure or present different levels of exposure to us? And Brandon's comment was that our exposure in a contract like this was actually very similar. And so if Jessica gets in a car accident and they come after the port and they realize the port doesn't have as deep pockets as whoever else is on the contract, could they come after the county at that point? The answer is always they could, right? They go after whoever the heck they want. And so that was an example of the exposure the county might have. They're going to find the money, right? That's where they're going. So in that regard, we do have a recommendation from our risk pool for what we would carry in insurance. And that was one of the spots that sound like they're gonna stand firm on, so.
Okay.
Take it for what it is.
That's about all we have for you guys.
Did she have some kind of timeline? Because,
I was expecting it today.
Okay.
Or this week for sure. But we can follow up and double check.
okay, because I mean, we asked to be on the agenda every week.
I know.
But if we don't have a chance to review it, why bring us
Yeah.
to another meeting
Yes.
if we're not gonna be ready to sign?
So
Right.
can we placeholder depending on
Yeah,
like timing of it? Like, could we just make sure it's carved out and then?
Well, it crossed my mind, and so I'll just ask the question, when would you like to be notified? Don't bother coming next week if we don't have something to put into your hands.
So we'll know next, if we have our meetings on Tuesdays, we'll know Monday if we have nothing to send you, so.
But do you want it to go to our attorney? Like, do we need time in between receiving it to, I don't know where we're at.
well, and I have to check with our insurance company too, so I need that back.
I'll speak for we, and you'll correct us if I'm wrong. We'd like you to have as much time as possible to review it, and that the sort of key linkage here is, as soon as it comes in from Dolly,
It's going.
yeah.
Okay. So I guess give us a placeholder for next week.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly.
We could do Tuesday because it's not our board meeting, correct?
Right, yeah, we
So
can
we
do
could do it
Tuesday.
Tuesday next week because it's not the board meeting day, if that gives you guys enough time.
Yes,
Yeah.
and let me reiterate to you guys, just so you understand, our role in this is done.
Right,
The commissioner's role.
Yeah, it's
We're
just a-
pretty unified that we're gonna follow Dolly's recommendation.
you have to.
Her recommendation is totally around legal risk and liability. And that recommendation is gonna be across the board, it's the same to you as any other contractor. So our role in this is done. We're largely, when we receive it in our hands, gonna pass it on to you guys and let your legal look at it and come back to us as soon as we can.
Right.
Just so we know we're all on the same page. And we can get them on the agenda for Tuesday, maybe next.
Yeah.
Jeez,
Everybody's looking past.
everybody's looking at crystals.
For Chair. Dolly intends to send me that contract this week, is what she said, this week.
Right.
Immediately when I receive it, I'm gonna forward it to you two ladies.
Okay.
And then I did not have enough notice to let you know not to come today. I did not know what was gonna happen.
Honestly, it's not like it's a bad thing to be here and communicating
Yeah.
at this point, so
Next,
And then we know the format, we've got that sorted out. She'll have it in the Word version, the red line version. Is that, okay?
Yes,
and then
I knew there was concern, PDF is awkward.
we have an opening next Tuesday at 2:00 that we could have this placeholder for the last discussion. It's April 23rd, 2:00.
Does that work for you?
if we have a 10 o'clock. We have 7:30 to 10, I think. So that would be better for the afternoon.
yeah, that would be great.
Okay, so are we planning on signing then? Is that the-
Well, that's gonna be in your guys', yeah. First, you need to look at it and, check everything meets your, is acceptable to you. I think we're good to go forward on our end with, after we get it back from Dolly with her recommendation today.
So I think the one that's hanging in space was the contract term. Because the other pieces we technically voted on, although we voted on the contractor. So if Dolly has clear direction not to change it from what we voted on.
Right.
And we're not changing that, then the answer for me is yes, we would be signing.
She asked me what the consensus of the term was, and I said, we already voted on the.
Yeah, okay, perfect. I wanted to sure,
It's fine.
because it was, in writing, and so I didn't want her to take that as an indication that, oh, yeah, this is.
So she did ask me about that question.
Good.
She also asked about a couple of clarifying questions about your comments on there. One was the political activity question around that, and I tried to clarify that for her. And she also asked about the explaining private benefit, and she's going to cite the RCW, and she said that should be well known that there is a specific
I just don't want it to bite us
I
later.
understand, you wanna clarify.
Yep.
So she's gonna cite the RCW
Okay,
in that. So those were the things she asked me about. And
Okay.
yes, we did have a consensus on the time.
Okay.
I think we're ready to go.
okay, so we'll, unless there's something glaring,
Yes,
then we'll plan on signing on
okay,
that next Tuesday.
We'll sign first, and then if it's accepted, then it comes before the commissioners with resolution.
So you won't approve it till the following week.
If
You
they,
do it that
if
right
they have a
after you
signed
sign.
contract from the court Tuesday, they will also sign it Tuesday.
Okay, so that's, our plan will be to
Yes.
sign right here,
okay,
and hopefully Dolly gets it,
yeah, no.
to us
I
by
think that's
Thursday or
acceptable
Friday,
to
or
us.
so, okay.